All right, so we'll just start, and the people who have not joined, they can join later. So we've done encapsulation and we've done abstraction. So today, what we're going to do is polymorphism, and then we'll be left with inheritance for all of our OOPS concept, right? So polymorphism, it comes from a Greek word, okay? Polymorphism comes from a Greek word, poly and morphs. And poly means many, and morphs mean forms. So that's exactly, these actually, this OOPS concept, the name is actually, exactly what the functions are. So polymorphism means that you can have different methods uh, performing, different tasks, but they can have the same name. So the two main, we're going to go deep in it. So the two main ways in which Java performs polymorphism is method overloading and method overriding. So the easiest way to understand polymorphism is that you can have two different methods which will have the same exact name, and but they will be differentiated by the arguments they have. So first let's see method overloading. All right, these are two method overloading and overriding are two ways in which Java can perform polymorphism. So if a class has multiple methods having same name but different parameters, it is known as method overloading. What does same name means? Like when you write, public void and you give the name. If you have public void sum and you have another public void sum, that's method overloading, but the number of arguments or the type of the argument should be different. So I'll just give you like a small example. I'll try, let me make a new file and we'll just call it a.java. All right, I hope you all can see we have this class and then we have a main. So if I make a function, let's say we'll make a void sum, and I will say int a, int b, and it will do still dot int a plus b. All right, and then we can have a void sum int a, int b, int c, and all right. And now if you notice one thing, if I remove this C from here, it will give me an error. If I remove this, see, it underlined this. Why? Because duplicate methods int. This is sum with two ints, and we made another sum with two ints, which cannot be done. This is not allowed. But you can have two methods with the same name, but different number of arguments. See, it has two ints, but this one has three ints. Even though the name is same, the number of arguments is different, the parameters are different. That's why we can have both of these. And what is this doing? This is called function overloading. So we have two functions with the same name but different parameters, different arguments. So these both will be treated differently. Are you understanding? Anybody confused over here? How we can call it? We can say, if I'll say this, if I'll say sum 10, 20. All right. All right, so when we will call this sum 10, 20, this sum will be called. And if I will write sum 10, 20, 30, this sum will be called, not this one. Why? Because sum with three ends is over here. This is sum with three ends. And if I will give a sum with two ends, then this sum will be called a sum with two integers. Is it clear? Is anybody confused
Yes,
over
ma'am.
here? Okay. So now this is one way of performing function overloading by giving different number of arguments. You can even give different type. Let me say this was int and this was of type. Yeah, let me say this was double. And then I can have this one as well. I can do this. Now why can I do this? Because this is sum with an integer and a double, and this is sum with one integer with two integers. So they both are different now. This is sum with integer and a double, and this is sum with two different integers. That's why these both are different for the compiler. And this is also function overloading. We have the same name, but we have different types of arguments. Not different number now, we have different types. This is integer and double, this is integer integer. Alright. So, what are the advantages? Advantages method overloading increases the readability of the program. How? Let's say we have a program where we need to sum different types of values. So, and we are making methods to do that. All right. So there can be a method to sum integers. There can be a method to sum double. Now, if we are using method overloading, so we can name both of those methods as sum. We can have sum with two integers and we can have sum with two doubles. But if we do not use function overloading, we will have to, give a different name to that method every time. So that will be confusing. You need to have like a sum int and a sum double. So it will, the readability will not be there. You will be having like you will be giving different names to all the methods. But where needed, you can make use of polymorphism and have different methods with the same name. All right. Anybody wants to ask any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So this was method overloading, and then there's method overriding. All right. Now the difference, like these both are, they both have like a very similar name, but are pretty different in nature. So what is method overriding? Over here, we can say that we have two different classes. We have a class A and we have a class B. And let's say class A is the parent class and class B is the child class. All right. We talked about inheritance, right? We will be doing inheritance tomorrow is Sunday, Monday. So we'll do it more in deep, but I hope you remember I did talk about inheritance before, where like your parents and you. So we have a class A, which is the parent class, and we have a class B, which is the child class. Now, let's say parent A had a method which was sum, and it was adding two integers, and method B, which was the child method, it also, the child class, sorry, the class B, which was the child class, also has a method called sum, which is having two integers. All right. So both in the class A and in class B, we have two methods which are sum, which are taking two integers. Now, when you call sum in B, in your child class, which sum will be called? Not the one which is present in class A, but the one which is present in class B. Why? Because we have overridden that method of the parent class in class B. All right, I hope, let me see if there's an example. So that would be, yeah. There's this class vehicle, and then we have this class bike, which extends vehicle, right? And it has the main, and it made an object. It's an object dot run. So what they're doing over here is they have this class vehicle, and they had this method run in it, and class B extends vehicle. So this is the parent class, and this is a child class. And over here to call this run, they made an object, and they said obj.run. So when they said obj.run, it did not search for run in the bike class. It went to vehicle class and it called run and printed vehicle is running. So this is the problem without method overriding. No overriding is happening over here. And then this is where overriding will happen. Alright? This was the one how you've done it. You've already done this normal method. I hope this is the program that you understand. You all have done this. You have made different classes and made object and then called methods from there, right?
Yes,
So I
ma'am.
hope you, yeah. So this is your normal without method overriding program, and then this is the one which uses overriding. So now it's the same thing. There's vehicle and then there's method run. Bike 2 extends vehicle, so this is your parent class vehicle and this is your child class bike 2, and this also has a run method which prints bike is running safely. So see, both of them have the same run. Okay, run with no parameters, run with no parameters, both are void. So now in the main, what did it say? It said bike 2 object equals to new bike 2 obj dot run. So what did this one print? It printed bike is running safely. It did not print this. It did not print this. Vehicle is running. What did it print? It printed bike is running. Why? Because this run have gotten overridden by this one. It has gotten overridden by this run. There are more example, like a bigger example. They made different object for each class, and then they printed s dot get rate. When they printed s dot get rate, it printed the SBI's rate, and then when they printed I dot rate, it must have printed the rate which is in ICICI, right? So I hope this is a bit clear. You can have different methods in different classes, which are like child classes with the same name and the same everything. Every time you make an object, it is called that way. If you made object for ICICI, it will call this. If you make a method for access, it will call that. Is it clear? Is anybody like confused?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. So now I will move on to your tic-tac-toe project then. Let's go back. Yesterday, for some reason, I don't know why my internet just stopped working. I'm going to go over it once more. Let's go over it once more today then. So we took two array lists. We took two array lists of type integer. It was player positions and CPU positions. So player position stores all the positions where a player has made a move. By all we mean all. Like let's say in the first turn the player chose one, so it will store one. Next time the player chose three, so it will have one and three. So it will have all the positions on the board where the player's tile is placed, player's mark is placed. All right, so this will also help us later to figure out the winner. And same with CPU position, it keeps on storing all the positions where the CPU has placed a mark. Okay, so if the CPU played 1, so it will store 1. CPU plays 2, it will store 2. And we will also be using these later to figure out who is the winner. Alright, because we need three consecutive positions, either horizontally or vertically or diagonally. Only then we can say that somebody has won. So how will we figure it out? We should have a data about where all the marks are placed. So this is what we are using it for. Then we used a while true. True means that will keep on running forever. It is never going to, the condition is always true. so that the user is asked again and again to give a mark, and the program just doesn't end after one turn, so the user can get more turns. Then what we did was we came over here to a place mark method. Place mark, where we had the game board and we had the position and we had the user. So, and here we were checking if the user is a player, we will use the symbol X. Here we will write player position dot add position. So this will add whatever position was chosen by the player into the player positions array list. We use dot add to do that. And same over with the CPU. If the player is CPU, then the CPU position will be added to CPU positions array list. Till here, is it clear? I did do it yesterday as well, but just going over it once more.
Clear, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So once we have gotten this, now we have stored all the position and array lists, and our loop keeps on running again and again, like keeps on asking the user to enter another position after the CPU has taken its turn. We are going to check that for some reason it doesn't happen that if a player, let's say the player chose one in the first round, and then the CPU got the turn to choose a random number, and that random number turned out to be 1. So what will happen, the player's mark, let's say there was an X at one position, will be replaced by an O, but we don't want that. We want the user or the CPU to choose only the position where there is no mark at all. We want them to choose the position where there is no mark. Only the empty boxes should be chosen. They should not be choosing a position where there is already a mark placed. So we'll check it. Okay. The first what we did, we had the scanner, then we asked the to enter your placement, and we took the placement in position in POS. This is where, this is the number that the user chose. This is the position that the user chose. After that, we will check while player position contains that position, that array list of player position contains this position. That means the player has already chosen that position before. Or these are two vertical lines. This is the or symbol. Okay, this vertical line is present in your keyboard. So you place two vertical lines, and then which is or. CPU positions contains the position. So let, what we are checking, that the position that the user chose, if it is while it is present in player position or it is present in player position, we will print enter another position, and we will ask for the input again. Till when are we going to ask for the input? Till both of these conditions are not for. Till the user doesn't enter position number which is neither present in player position nor is it present in the CPU position. Only then it will come out of this while and go to the place mark and place the mark on the board. Same we're going to do with the CPU. We're going to check player position contains CPU position or CPU positions contains CPU position. Then we're going to ask, we're going to like generate another random number. We are generating a random number over here. Then we will generate another random number and close the while loop. And after that, we are going to place the CPU's marker. Let me run the program. I think then it will be more easier to understand. Let's see if it runs over here. Otherwise, I will have to do it in the terminal. Let's choose 1. So we got the X, and the computer chose the position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's try putting an X on the 7th position, okay? I'm going to say 7. So it told me to enter another position. Okay, it did not place the X over here. It asked me to enter another position. Let's see if I choose 1 again. It asked me to enter another position again. Now if I choose 2, it placed over there, the CPU placed it over there, and then I can choose 3, and I should have won the game at this point, but we have not coded that part yet. We have not coded the part where we choose the winner. We have only went till where we are placing the marks, and we are checking if that position is not already occupied. If the position is already occupied, we ask them to enter another position, and then that is done, and then we have computer's turn, and the computer is taking a turn. So, is it clear till here? Like, are you guys able to? Will you all be able to, do this much coding yourself? This will be your task for today.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, it's clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So, alright, this is all I prepared for today. I thought you guys will be asking me questions or something. Let's see if we can do some program. Let's see some practice Java program. Somebody sent me a question, but they sent me a question personally. So I even texted on the group, guys, please. I've been telling you since day one, but you all keep on doing it. I do respond to your messages personally because send your errors and I know that you are stuck and you want me to solve it so that you can complete your task. So I just feel like, okay, I should just do it. So I do it personally, but I've been asking you hundreds of time to not text me personally and do it on the group. And why do it on the group? It's not because, like, you're just texting personally, because sometimes the error you are facing, somebody else might be facing the same error. So, or maybe they didn't even realize that you can get an error like that. So if you put your question up in the group, everybody can benefit from that. All right, one thing is that, and the other thing is, sometimes I do not check, sometimes I might miss personal messages and I just check the group and there's no message. And there should be some activity in the group, because I give you all task over here, and then you guys end up asking me questions personally. So it looks like we are not doing anything. Okay, I don't even want that happening. So whatever query, whatever doubt, whatever error you are getting and you want to be solved, put it in the group and do not text me personally. All right. I hope that's clear. Text me personally only if there is an actual personal problem. And by actual personal problem means a very serious problem that you do not want to put it on the group. If there's a problem like, ma'am, I will not be able to join the class today, you can put it in the group. There's no problem in that. Okay. So yeah, so let's look for stranger. Yeah, let's see to this question, how to find the maximum occurring character in a given string. You have a string and you want to find which character is occurring maximum time. Like, let's say, why do these ads keep on popping? Maybe. Let's say you had maximum, okay, somebody entered maximum. So M is the maximum occurring character. M occurs 1, 2, 3 times. So how will you solve this question? Take a minute or two, think about it, and I want everybody thinking about it, and then I want answers from you all. You have done enough questions. I think you will be able to solve this. Did anybody figure it out? Did you guys, if you did not even figure out the complete program, like any logic that you think can be used to solve this problem? Anyone? No one. It is not that difficult. You guys did not even figure out like what you should be doing, like a logical approach for it. Like, okay, I will get a string from the user, then I should do this, and then I should do that. Right, then I'll just discuss the solution with you and then I will go. Is somebody saying something? Yeah, it's over here. So they took a string input. Today is Monday, and okay, this is a program to count number of A, but you can use this to count separate. I think I've given this program to you as a task before. I don't know, but you guys are not able to tell me, so I'll just assume that you don't know. So what they're doing is, let me check. Yes, they've done it only for A, but you can do it for every different character, and you will need two loops for that. So for in the first loop, you will be taking out one of the characters. In the second loop, you will be going over the complete string again and checking it for that. So let me like kind of write it away. I'm not doing the complete program. You guys can try doing it later, and if you face a problem, you can ask me because it's not about me practicing, it's about you practicing. Let's say you had a string s is equals to, let me just call it, let me just do it maximum. Okay. You had the string and you had to find the maximum occurring element. So I'll just do an int l is equals to s dot length. So you got the length, and then we're going to have a for loop. Int I equals to 0, I is less than, and then you will have I plus plus. And then what you can do is you can have a character and C is equals to S dot caret I. So what will it do? It will give you the character at the first position. It will give you the character which is present at the first position. And then what you have to do is you have to go over the complete string and you have to find the number of times this character occurs in the string, right? So I'm going to tell you how you can do it for a single thing, okay? I'm just giving you logic to find it for a certain character. Let's say we had to find it for A. What we would have done is we would have done if C equals A. So we can just have a counter. We can have a int counter equals to 0, and we will just do counter equals to counter plus 1. So what will it do? Every time it gets an A, it will increase the counter by 1. It will increase the counter by 1. So every time an A occurs, it will be increasing the counter by 1. But what the program asked you to do was you need to find the character which occurs maximum time. So you have to first take this first character, check how many times it occurred in the complete thing, and then you will take the second character and check how many times that occurred in the complete thing, and till like that you will do the whole string, and once you're done with it you will check which one had the maximum number, and if it had the maximum number you will print that. So this is the basic logic of how you can calculate it, but this is not how you will get the output. This is not how you will find the maximum occurring character. You have to make changes. So what I want you all to do is I want you all to figure this thing out, and this is your second task. So you have two tasks because next class will be on Monday. So I want you to find the output to this program, and I want you to find and I want you all to complete the tic-tac-toe program till where we have done it. All right. I hope it is clear. I hope the tasks are clear. You have to complete this tic-tac-toe game till where we've done it. You should be able to print the markers and check if the position is already occupied or not. All right. And in the next session on Monday, I want everyone joining through your laptops, and I will be checking till where you've reached in your tic-tac-toe program. You will be running your program and showing it to me. So join from your laptop. I'll put it in the group as well. If you are by chance you think that okay on Mondays and I will not be able to join from my laptop, send me a working video of the program beforehand. I don't want it on Monday, like, oh, my something happened to my laptop, something this, something that. Be prepared. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I will be checking, because if you want to do a lot of projects, if you want to do more coding programs like this instead of just going over theory again and again and again, then put in some effort. It gets kind of boring for me to do it one-sidedly and I don't know what's happening over there. So will be seeing your tic-tac-toe project till where it's completed, and on Monday is the last part of it. We will be doing the part where we will be declaring the winner and it will be finished. And same goes for the other program that I just gave you. I will be checking it on Monday itself. So I want to see it running. I will be checking your code. Do not copy it blindly from somewhere. I will be able to tell. Okay. Understand it and do it. And yes, by chance you feel like you will not be able to show me the code on Monday, send me a working video of it before. All right.
Okay,
So
ma'am.
I think you guys are no. Yeah, you're saying something? Sakshina, are you saying something?
I said okay.
All right. So yeah, if you have no doubts anymore, so I will be ending. We can just end the session over here. If you have some doubts, you can ask me. No doubts? If there are no doubts, you can start leaving the class. Because this today's agenda is kind of completed now. And on Monday, we will be finishing a tic-tac-toe program. We'll be finishing inheritance. So we'll be done with the OOPS concept and we'll be done with one of our projects. And I will be checking your work as well. And then if you guys will be done by the complete project by Tuesday, we can start working on another one, but only if I see progress from your side. All right. So if you have no any more questions, nothing, then you can just start leaving the class.
Ma'am,
Yes.
just go back to your tic-tac-toe demo.java program.
This is the tic-tac-toe Java program.
Ma'am, you were showing that output, enter your placement, that program. Yes.
What are you, like, tell me what you want to ask, then I'll go to that part now.
Ma'am, that output you have showed us just few minutes
Hmm.
ago.
You want to see the output?
Yes, yes, just open your terminal.
Let me see. Yeah, this?
Yes, ma'am. My doubt is if we type the same placement which we have already typed
Mm-hmm.
on first place also. So
Yeah.
what will show the result?
We just did that. That's exactly what we're discussing today. If you see, this is what I did. I put 7 again because the computer had placed O at 7. So it asked it to enter another position. Then we entered 1, which was already taken. 1 was already taken. So it asked it to enter another position. And that's where, at the end, we entered 2, which was not taken before. It placed 2 at that position. That's why we made those array lists and we were checking if the position entered by the user is present in that array list, then that will be done.
Okay, ma'am.
Alright?
Yes, ma'am. Clear.
Okay. If you don't have any more questions, you can start leaving.